Kris Ehler, Ehler Brothers Company, Ehler Brothers Seed in Thomasboro, Illinois. So my background and specialty is soybeans. I call myself the bean dork and have for many years. When it comes to harvest efficiency, usually growers overlook several small things that can be overcome during the harvest season. A lot of that comes down to timely harvest and when we harvest and at what moisture we harvest. And again, once we quantify those things, I think growers will have a better idea and also prioritize maybe a little bit differently or better to help maximize their yields and return. One of the biggest things that I stress to growers is when it comes to harvest, soybeans are starting to get drier and we're moving away from that 13 optimal percent of harvest moisture, and we start creeping down. Now we're down to 10%, 9%, 8%. I like to quantify that so growers know what their actual loss is. We've got a 75 bushel an acre yielding field. We're gonna harvest it at 10%. We're giving up about 3.3% of yield, and at $14, that's about $35 an acre loss. Now we step that up, we start thinking about below 10%, we start to see shatter. And we know that we can start to lose anywhere from 2 to 3 bushel with shatter as well. So once you factor that in, say we're losing 2 bushel at that 10%, and at $14 beans, there's another almost $30. So we're knocking on the door of $75 an acre loss at that 10%. Once we start to quantify this, maybe it changes our outlook and we're doing a better job of watching the weather forecast. I always get the argument from growers, well, Kris, if I'm waiting, then it gets wet, now I'm gonna have huge losses. I completely understand that argument as well. But there are certain times in the harvest season that we need to be a little bit more cognizant of the weather forecast, harvesting at an optimal moisture. Maybe we take a step back and say, you know, there's a rain coming in 5 days. It's not forecasted to be anything severe. We can get back out in 1 to 2 days. Let's go ahead and hold off, maximize your harvest profitability. The other thing that I'll tell growers, if you do get in lower moisture situations and it's going into a bin, that's a great opportunity as well. Run those fans on a morning where there's a little bit of dew, a little bit of fog, pull that moisture into the bin and put some moisture back into those beans before you empty it out. And soybeans are great about that. You can get a moisture that, say you harvested at 9%, you can get them back up to 12, 13, 14%. Pretty easy on a couple days where the mornings are nice and damp. One of the greatest pieces of equipment that I think has come along in the last 10 to 12 years is the draper head. I love a piece of equipment that can actually pay for itself, and the draper head is definitely one of those pieces of equipment. When we look at it, we can quantify it to about a 2 bushel an acre return on our investment, especially as we talked about lower potted soybeans. These can be late seeded beans in our ponded areas that are really short, but also potted extremely low. So how do we capture all that yield into the combine? Well, again, that draper head is extremely efficient in doing so. It's a nice, uniform, consistent feed. The flex heads give us the opportunity to really adjust to that contour of the field and the topography, and it feeds the beans in nice, uniform, and also captures all those lower pods. This piece of equipment I think is very unique as well. It's called an air reel. We've used this on our farm, and again, it's gonna help feed those soybeans in where it actually starts pushing them in with air and limits the amount of thrashing that our fingers will do to help also feed the soybeans in. Also, if we're in a low moisture environment, it kind of helps blow those beans that are wanting to shatter, that the pods are wanting to pop, and start pushing those onto the platform so they can be fed into the feeder house as well.